Hi and welcome to Blueprint Career Development's TAE program. My name is Paul and I'm giving you a guided tour of the Delivery Cluster Assessments Projects 1 and 2. In this presentation we'll be looking at Projects 1 and 2 which require you to deliver two 15-minute training sessions. You will be preparing your two sessions, conducting the sessions, and then you'll complete an evaluation on those two sessions. Your trainer will also conduct an evaluation. The documentation and processes for these two projects will be the same. However, they need to be conducted with at least two different individuals. These types of sessions are commonly conducted in the workplace and may include things like coaching, mentoring, on-the-job training, on-site or off-the-site training, RPL, or a combination of any of those. To start this project, you're going to need to download some documents from the Resources tab in Accelerate. For starters, you'll need the individual learning plan. So this document outlines the plan for all your training and is based on the individual's identified training development need. It specifies how and when the training course sessions and elements of the course will be delivered. For the purpose of these assessments, we will be conducting a learning plan, or rather developing a learning plan for work-based trainees. This document includes a self-evaluation on the last page as well. The training session you're going to deliver can relate to a unit of competency, for example, create a basic PowerPoint or a spreadsheet, or could simply be a work skill, for example, a new procedure or a safety induction. The next document you will need will be the session plan. This is your planning guide on how to run the session. It's like a roadmap, making sure that all the topics are covered in a logical order and on time. It helps keep you on track, really. Any resources you use in your session, for example, PowerPoints, handouts, etc., need to be uploaded as supporting evidence. In some cases, you may not actually have a resource that you've produced, but if you do, upload it with the session plan. The last piece is the trainer evaluation. So this will be completed by your trainer once they've observed you conducting your training session. And the other document that would be of use to is our Blueprint training manual. So that will give you an understanding of the cluster and help you. So it's good to have a read of that one before we start. Okay, let's get started. The first document we're going to have a look at is the individual learning plan. So this is about a 2 or 3 page document that we need to complete, and this provides us full details of the individual, their workplace details, their supervisor's details, and what the learning plan is going to be about. So let's move through the document bit by bit, and I'll explain what needs to go in each area. The first bit, the learner details, are fairly self-explanatory. You just need to enter the personal details of the learner, the name, their address, contact number, email address. The next part is the workplace details for the learner. So you enter in the supervisor's name, their contact number and email, what the title is. So it might be the office manager, it might be the team leader, or it might be the business owner, and also the address of the business. So you can make up these details for the purpose of the projects that we're working on at the moment. The trainer details, you would put your name in there, as well as an email and a training organisation name. If you can't think of a name, I always tend to use something like ABC Learning. Further down we have the learning plan details. So this is about the goal. So what is proposed as an outcome or goal of the training. So with this, I'd focus on using the SMART principle when you're developing your goal statement. There's lots of information around the internet on SMART goals. One particularly good reference is a website called Mind Tools. You put a start and an end date for the session, so for the program. So if you're doing a single unit, it might be a 1 month period. So you might start it on the first of the month and finish on the last day of the month. The learning pathway, this is an overview of what training and activities will be conducted on your workplace visits or your regular training sessions. So you might do 2 visits for this particular unit, an initial visit and then a follow-up visit, or a completion visit rather. So on visit 1, you could include things like an introduction, maybe initial training, an overview of the assessment, self-paced plan for the learner to complete during the following period, You'd probably also assign some tasks for the supervisor. So you'd want the supervisor to maybe set some relevant workplace tasks and expectations of the learner. It might be a case that they supervise any work that the learner does and also maintains a logbook of the activities. Visit 2 would include things like a progress check. Maybe you mark the assessments that have been done, review the assessments, provide feedback, let the learner know how they've gone, whether they need to resubmit anything or whether they're competent in that particular unit. Down further here, we'll put the unit code and the unit name, the start and end date, which would be the same as those 2 up there, and also the outcome. So what do we expect as an outcome for it? Ideally, the learner would be deemed competent in that unit of competency. On this page, we look at the implementation plan details, and to start off with, we have the trainer visit schedule. Now, I'd expect to see a bit of a more detailed plan of what's going to happen on each of the visits. For example, I'd be using whatever detail we put in there and just expanding on that so it gives us a little bit more detail. The second part is any work health safety implications that we need to consider. So this might be things like, what types of things do we need to consider before they actually start the training? So are there specific safety issues relating to the work environment? For example, is it a commercial kitchen? There's a number of safety considerations in there. If they work in an office, have they got the correct ergonomic setup? Has the learner been trained in emergency procedures and evacuation? Next, we look at inclusivity and diversity issues that need to be considered. So are there any issues surrounding inclusivity or any cultural aspects that need to be considered before training can begin? Has the learner got an understanding of computers if they're doing a computer-based course like PowerPoint or spreadsheets or something like that? In the next section, we put in the learning plan closure strategy. So once the training is complete, how will you close off for the unit or end in the relationship if it's the completion of the entire qualification? This might be a case where you sit down and have a discussion, a 3-way discussion, providing feedback to the learner and their supervisor. It might be completion of all the paperwork, a signing off of the completion of competency report, things like that, which sort of signals an end to that particular part of the training, whether it's a unit or whether further down the track it's a full qualification. In the next section, we look at any additional learner support that may be required. Does the learner have a special need? Do they need additional training on computers before they undertake something like PowerPoint, or do they have a disability that we need to be aware of? In the area down here, the learning program evaluation, this is where we ask some questions of the learner and also the supervisor. So we need to come up with 4 questions. So with those 4 questions, examples could be, as a result of this training, do you feel confident in performing this particular task? So come up with 4 questions. Once you've completed the training session with the learner, you can then complete the responses. So before you've done the actually conducted the session, you won't be able to go any further in completing these responses. On this side here, you have 4 questions you need to come up with to ask the supervisor. An example of this might be, was the content relevant to the workplace, sufficiently covering all aspects of the particular task required? So have a think about 4 questions you'd like to ask the supervisor to get feedback on how they felt the program went and the benefits, etc. Once again, you won't be able to complete the responses until you've conducted the training session, but with that, you would go through and do a role play with the person who you used as your learner in the role play. Down below, you have a section here for an action plan for improvement. So based on the responses you got from the learner after you conducted the session, maybe there's a couple of points in there that you can put into an action plan for improvement. The same with the supervisor. Once you've completed that, maybe there's a couple of ideas in there, plans for improvement that you could throw in. And in that bottom section there, you provide an overall comment about the program. This could be from the action points noted above or your own comments about how you felt the program went. The last page is for you to do a self-reflection of the program. So reflect on each question, providing an appropriate amount of detail to demonstrate that you've actually considered the response. So maybe a sentence or two in relation to each of those. You may need to make up a little bit of information. For example, who did you consult to confirm the learning pathway, or who did you consult regarding the participants' external studies? Opportunity here to be creative, put a little bit of information in there to complete your reflection questions. And that's it for the individual learning plan. Now we're going to talk about the session plan. So this is your roadmap. This is your guide to how the program is going to run. So you start off by putting the qualification code and title in there. So if it's not a full qualification you're delivering, it may just be a unit of competency, a standalone unit or a cluster. In that case, I would just put not applicable. The unit of competency goes down in the next section. So make sure you put the unit code and the name. How much time have you allocated for the session? So in project 1 and 2, it's going to be 15 minutes. What resources do you need? Do you need a laptop, PowerPoints, handouts? Are there any props or tools that you might need? Enter that into that section there. The locations, whereabouts are you going to deliver it? Is it going to be in a classroom, a training room? Is it going to be on the job? The trainer name, that's going to be your name because you're the person presenting the session, and the date the session's going to be held, and also the aim and objective. So this is the goal or objective of the session. So once again, as we did in the individual learning plan, write that as a SMART goal statement. For example, by the end of this session, the learner will be able to, whatever the case may be. In this section down here, this is where we actually break up our session into different sections. So break your session into a logical sequence of topics, providing details of each topic in the appropriate boxes down through here. Over in here, we'd include what delivery strategies you're going to use for each topic. For example, are you using a PowerPoint, video, whiteboard, handouts? Any resources you do develop for this 15-minute presentation, you will need to provide a copy of that and submit that on Accelerate when you submit your session plan. Down in here, you need to enter the time that you expect to take for each topic. For example, your introduction might take 1 minute, your next topic 1 might take 5 minutes, topic 2 might take 5 minutes. But go through and change these numbers all the way down here for the time. And the thing you need to do is make sure that the total amount of time you allocate here equals the time you've allocated up there. Any rows that you don't need, for example, for a 15-minute presentation, you're not going to need a break. You may not use all the topic rows. Just delete those just to make sure you tidy up your document. You have a section down here for a conclusion, which would be within that 15 minutes. So your conclusion might be 30 seconds, it might be a minute. And lastly, we've got some reflection to do. So reflect on the session you've delivered. Is there anything you would do differently next time? Any continuous improvement ideas, things you'd like to try, or things did it run over time? Do you need to take some stuff out, or was there some feedback from your learners that you might like to add in for the next time? Okay, that's it for the session plan. This document is a trainer evaluation, so you don't need to fill this out. The trainer or the assessor, observer who is observing you conducting this session, they will complete this and give you a copy of it. So your name will be in there as the trainer facilitator because you're the person who conducted the 15-minute session. This is your assessor. The topic, that was the subject of your presentation, the date and time of the presentation. The assessor will put their name in there as well as their contact details. If it's not a Blueprint staff member doing the assessment, they need to enter their details of their qualifications. On the next page, we have the checklist of things that your assessor observer is going to be looking for. You don't need to do anything here. You can use this as a guide to what types of things they'll be looking for in your presentation. Your assessor will then put in some feedback in this section here and sign the bottom of the page. They will then provide you a copy of this. You're required to put in some self-reflection notes and feedback and then sign it. Once you've got it back completed, you can then upload it. And that's it for the trainer evaluation. That concludes our presentation on Project 1 and 2. I hope you found this informative and wish you all the best with your projects. Thank you.